No, there ain't no stopping us. Fly without a boarding pass. Couldn't catch me, I be moving fast. Call me a shooting star. Let 'em know who you are. Flying up in a bar. Wish on a star. Time to show 'em who's in charge. Call me a shooting star. Didn't even get to cross. I said I'm moving too far. Get to glass. Looking at a shooting star. Got more than a couple of people going mad. I swear they're rooting hard. Tell them I'd be big in the game like she went and got them breast implants. I said I'm moving too fast. Didn't even get to glance. I'm ready to eat up track like I'm seated in a restaurant. If you had swag like mine, you know it's best to flaunt. We aren't hating because you aren't. Shining like it's neon. Rock like kings of Leon. Shooting stars across the galaxy. I stand out, so don't be mad at me. Infiltrate, I'm with my strategy. When I turn up, then I just have to leave. Shooting stars across the galaxy. I stand out, so don't be mad at me. Infiltrate, I'm with my strategy. When I turn up, then I just have to leave. Yeah, shoot. Yeah, shoot. Yeah, shooting. Yeah, shooting shots. Shooting stars. Didn't even get to cross.
Okay, 1 second here. Okay, there we go. Got it now. I did unmute it. Remember, there should be audio now. Let me know. Let me know if you got audio. I am waiting to hear if you guys have audio yet. Okay, perfect. Again, this is that new system I'm still working with over in the bedroom here, and I think I've got it this time, but we shall see. And it's hard because I'm working on a really small screen because it's on my makeup stand. But I've got a few clips for you guys today that we didn't get to do last time. And I'm just going to stick my hair up because I'm getting ready also for an interview. So that's why I'm doing a Get Ready With Me. I'm on Fight for Liberty in under an hour. So whatever I can get done, I can get done. I'm glad I finally got this system set up. So let's get right into it. I probably shouldn't take my glasses off yet. That is a bit too optimistic probably because I need to make sure I have everything set up. So let's see. I've got a bunch of Ben Shapiro clips, a little bit of Dave Smith, some Jimmy Snow. So I'm looking at my screen here, and it looks like we might not, the next scene might not be correct. But let's see, okay? Now let's try.
Murray had until recently been hopeful that the discovery of several effective vaccines could help countries achieve herd immunity, or nearly eliminate transmission through a combination of inoculation and previous infection. But in the last month, data from a vaccine trial in South Africa showed not only that a rapidly spreading COVID variant could dampen the effect of the vaccine, it could also evade natural immunity in people who had previously been infected. Well, if that is the case, then you literally can't do anything. You've now talked about a disease that you cannot create immunity to, right? It just comes back around. It's like a common cold. It just comes back around. And the vaccine ain't going to work on it. So what exactly are you supposed to do? Lock yourself in your house for the rest of time?
Alrighty, and I don't know why during the sound clips my mic is not being muted. So the clips we have from Ben are on some various topics, but it's true. On this whole thing that's going on, putting on my primer, with the vaccine, there's this ever-shifting goalposts. And I don't know what they think they're trying to accomplish. Well, maybe it's me who's just being... Have I not learned? I guess that's what I have to say. I keep thinking at some point people are going to get tired of this. You know, for so long we heard you got to get the vaccine. And then there's the vaccine, and now, well, it doesn't matter. You can still get it anyway, and you can still pass it on, so you still got to social distance and wear a mask. Then what's the frickin' point? What is the point whatsoever? Now they're trying to scare with variants. Here's the thing. If this is just a new fact of life, it's a new fact of life. The key word here is life. What we did last year is not life. So things are going to get back to something. And I can tell you, I, for one, am not living how I did last year. That's not living. That's not freedom. So, yeah, I don't know how long people will actually tolerate this, or how long the government thinks they might tolerate it. But I can tell you, at least in the circles around here, not even libertarian circles, people are getting sick and tired of it. And I'm going to say what I said from the beginning, because it's funny, because more and more follow the science people are now starting to agree with me. And I wish I took names at the beginning of this with the people who were treating me like shit and mocking me for what I said. Viruses, things like that are just part of nature and reality. And you have to deal with Mother Nature on her own terms. And the fact is, you can't keep everyone from getting it. And in every organisms, because that's really all we are, time on Earth or time in the universe, you either overcome the pathogens or the pathogens overcome you. We cannot live in a bubble forever. That is not life, and that's not going to work. In fact, what's going to happen, I think that we're going to see, is this living in a bubble is going to make if it's done for long enough people start to lose resistance to other things. You see, I'm going to give you an example from The Tudors, of all things, from that television show, The Tudors. Now, I know that's fantasy, right? But he had the son, King Henry had the son he longed for so long. So what did he do? He wrapped this kid in a virtual bubble. Like everyone in the nursery was required to scrub down the walls with disinfecting every day. And that ended up, the kid died young. And the theory is because he didn't build up any natural immunity to anything. He was overprotected. So if it just is the fact that this thing's going to keep mutating and it's, it's just going to keep going around, well, then that's just a fact of life. And it's what we're going to have to deal with. You can either be completely safe or you can be completely free. And each bit of freedom you give up, you might not even get a bit of safety. But you might. But it's never worth it to give up freedom for safety. And I'm going to use an example that some people might find inflammatory, but you want to know what? For a while there, I think I was getting bit a little bit with the SJW bug. Not really, but kind of. I found that I was really self-censoring and not using the examples I'd like to give because you don't want to offend people. You don't want the wokesters coming after you. With how far they've gone, I'm done. I do not give a shit. If you are offended by my analogies, your browser button is really easy to find, to hit, to go away. So here's the analogy. There's people who still make this argument today, legitimately make this argument today. Sadly, some of them are Christians. So there'll be people who will argue that American slavery was just not that bad. In fact, those slaves had it pretty good off. Some of them, if you had a good master. Now, of course, there were some shitty masters, but if you had a good master, these people would argue, and I keep saying these people because this isn't an argument I'd make, that they had it well off. They had guaranteed food, they had guaranteed housing, they had guaranteed clothing, which was much better than poor white people who starved to death and, died from exposure to the elements. But that isn't living. Okay, so you're kept like a prize horse, and you're fed well, and you're clothed well, and you got a nice stall. But is that living when you're a slave? No, it's not. And if this contagion is just a new fact of reality, it's a new fact of reality. I'm not becoming a slave. Live dangerously, then safely on my fucking knees. All right, let's see some of the comments here. And where'd my cursor go? Here we go. And I did want to give a couple other comments here because I've had some people reeing over the fact that I play quite a few Ben Shapiro clips and agree with him. Because it turns out that libertarian dogma today is that you have to hate Ben Shapiro. You have to hate Jordan Peterson. I'm sure I can name some others. But I'm not going to hate those men because half of the time they're right. And I do my fair share of criticizing Ben Shapiro. You don't believe me? I just did a video critiquing Ben Shapiro's take on George Floyd. It's called Don't Cry for Me, Ben Shapiro. Go check it out. Some Ben Shapiro fanboys got really upset with me, just like when I did the critique of Tucker Carlson, where all the Tucker's boyfriends came at me. But anyway, half of the time, Ben Shapiro has a lot of really good points, just like there are some progressives that I agree with. So, yeah, I don't listen to many libertarians. Dave Smith and now Tom Woods. I go on and off. I get tired sometimes and I stop. I start listening to audiobooks and not shows, but those are the only two libertarian shows I watch regularly. Everything else is either progressives or right. So let's go on to the next Shapiro clip.
Undergirding all of this is a twofold proposition. Proposition number one is that it is very good for centralized governments to have enormous power over your life because they know better than you. And that is the second proposition. You don't know how to handle your own life on nearly any metric. You don't know how to handle your own personal economics. That is why we need to remove money from you and then supposedly give it back to you later, even though we won't, with Social Security. It's why we need to make sure that you're not going to take care of your own health care. We need to provide health care for you, we the centralized government. You don't know how to educate your child. We're going to tell you how to educate your child. And you don't know how to avoid death. So we are going to force you to wear a mask. Right? That is the centralizing government rationale behind so much of the debate that is happening right now.
Exactly. It's like whatever thing, and he's going to say this, I think, later, that we think is the good thing, well, government's got to enforce it. We can't choose to live dangerously. I can't choose to say, hey, this is just a fact of life now. Just like it's a fact of life, if you want to enjoy the modern conveniences of plane travel, some of them are going to crash. And I use that example because I have a terrible phobia of flying. And for a while, I didn't do it. I didn't fly. I let it cripple me. And I realized that wasn't living. There were places I wanted to go. That actually wasn't the first step that got me to go over my phobia. That's now more my libertarian justification to try to get over my phobia. Actually, for those of you who are people of faith, what got me to get over that phobia, maybe this will inspire some of you who have some fears, is I was sitting at church and the preacher was preaching through Revelation, and he said, and this actually, you guys will see a lot of this in me, because this one sermon really, it rocked my world. But he had said in reading out the things of the people who will not inherit the kingdom of God, we all think of murderers and things like that. But you want to know what's on the list of people who will not inherit the kingdom of God? The cowardly. Which is probably why I have such disdain for cowardice. So I determined not to be a coward about things that I care about. So yeah, and then you start to get other justifications as well. And I think at the time I realized I had a very fundamental misunderstanding of what bravery is, or what lack of cowardice is. Being brave or not being a coward does not mean not being afraid. It doesn't mean fearlessness. If you're fearless, you can't be brave, because it's nothing to you. It's just like breathing if you're fearless. Bravery is when you're scared shitless and do it anyway. That is bravery. Fearlessness, that makes it easy then. What's probably hard for you if you're fearless is to show weakness. But anyway, yeah, the government knows best. So, I love this comment. I was talking about resistance to contagion and resistance to viruses. Here's Gary. Gary said, resistance to government is what I'm developing. Hey, that's a good thing. Build up that immunity to thinking the government is anything good. And I'd like y'all's opinion. Last time on this, I had some really bad lighting. And I put a ring light up here with my other lights. And to me, on this end, the lighting looks much better. Don't go, I look pale, because I am pale. It's winter in freaking Colorado. We got over 2 feet of snow outside. But it's not glary like it was last time. But let me know. I'd like y'all's opinion, because I can adjust the lighting some more. But let's continue. Make sure I've got the comments up. Okay, here we go.
And this is how people on the left tend to think of the government. The government is there to do the good thing. So if you're going to wear if we want you to wear a mask, we have to force you to wear a mask. And if somebody says that they think that you should have the ability not to wear a mask, that's the same thing as them saying they want you not to wear a mask. Not how this works. If Texas says we're not going to mandate it, that means exactly what it means, right? Which means they're not going to punish people. They're not going to fine people. They're not going to jail people. They're not going to have a mask mandate on the books. That doesn't mean that you on an individual level can't wear a mask. You can anytime you want. You can decide where to go. You can determine if you don't want to go into a business that has a lot of unmasked people. And we make these sorts of decisions every single day throughout our lives. Do you drive into a particular area with a high crime rate? Do you go out at a particular time of night when there are fewer people out on the streets? Where do you jog? Where do you send your kids to school? Right? These sort of risk assessments. How fast do you drive? Which route do you take? All of these risk assessments are part of your everyday life. We have evolved to make these risk assessments. Sometimes we make good risk assessments. Sometimes we make bad risk assessments. But the purpose of freedom is so that you can make those risk assessments. According to the left, however, you should not be allowed to do this because you're stupid.
They literally want to sacrifice the lives of our fellow Texans for, I don't know, for political gain, to satisfy certain powerful interests within the state. And this isn't hyperbole. It's hard to escape the conclusion that it's also a cult of death.
Isn't that one of the most ridiculous things you've ever heard in your life? You know, I'm a peaceful person, but that dude has a punchable face. So, if the government doesn't force something, then it's a culture of death. And we are sacrificing the lives of, in this circumstance, it was Texans, but, you know, it could be anywhere. I don't live in Texas, but, you know, that example. would go for anywhere. How freaking ridiculous is that? But I think there's a nuance here that Ben didn't pick up. It's not just, see, the left doesn't view you as an individual. The right doesn't in some ways either. So, but in this particular case, we're talking about the left. So you're not allowed to make these choices because they want to have a certain type of world. And they feel everybody should be forced to agree with this. So for them, it's not really about choices. They don't want to have to not go to a certain store because that store won't ask voluntarily people to wear masks. They, very selfishly, want everything to be to their liking so they don't have to make any choices, and you can't make any choices. That is more of what it's all about. Because whose lives are allegedly being sacrificed? The people who choose to come in contact with each other? See, they don't want to take this responsibility. They want the responsibility taken entirely away, and for you also not to have that choice for their comfort. And that is the ultimate selfishness of it. I just laugh at how people try to claim libertarians are selfish. No. Those who say, because there's some grandma somewhere who's old, and I'm sorry, old people die. We're all going to be there. Death is 100%. You're never going to protect every grandma from death. Every grandma is going to die. And when you're a grandma or a grandpa, you know, metaphorically, whether you have grandchildren or not, you're going to die. We haven't conquered that yet. So to tell me, where I've still got, knock on wood, multiple decades of good, healthy life left, that I've got to sacrifice that life for somebody at the end of life who might get sick? No. If they're worried, they should stay inside. We're not being the selfish ones. You're not being selfish just to simply want to live your life. And I think, was it Dave Smith? They had a long discussion that it was just so ironic about how the boomers love to say how selfish the millennials are, when it's the boomers that have put all this debt on people, that couldn't give up Social Security even though we would have so much more funds and money and the government shouldn't be doing your retirement anyway. And now we all have to stay inside. Everyone younger than them needs to stay inside for them. No, the millennials are not a selfish generation. The most selfish generation out there is the fucking boomers. And I'm almost a boomer myself. And even if I was a boomer, I would still be saying that. Right at the beginning of generation, I think it's Z. No, not Z. What was it? What's the one right after boomer? Whatever one that is, that's the one I am. But barely. I'm right on the cusp. But holy shit. That is selfish. To be sacrificing the life of young people for you. No. And I'm getting towards the old phase myself. I'm not young. And I do not want to sacrifice. I don't want to sacrifice anybody for me. But we have turned into a parasitic society where the older people are feeding upon the young. And then you have these old fucking Karens. Oh, look at these kids who are on the beach. Yeah, living their lives. Go home, Karen. Holy shit. Yeah, Guy, I was born in X. Yeah, that's it. I was born in 1967. So you and I are right in about that 5-year period of the cusp. But we're solidly in Gen X. But, you know, kind of in the interim between it. And yeah, Larry had a great point. I want to put this up. Right, the world is upside down because normally, yes, the older sacrifices for the future. But the most entitled generation is not the millennials. And if I were a millennial, I would be really fucking pissed at getting trashed so much with this shitty deal that the boomers have left the younger people with. It's not right. So, yeah, let's go on to the next one. I should have got that clip from Dave Smith. I still might. They nailed it. They really nailed it.
You want to talk about privilege? This guy is the definition of privilege. And my goodness, Beto O'Rourke, what a joke he is. But that's the point, right? Is that when he says things like, it's a cult, they want to kill us all, right? If I say to you, you're a free human being, you have the ability to decide for yourself whether you want to wear a mask or whether you don't want to wear a mask. That is me saying that you should go out and kill everybody. I mean, it's me saying that I want a cult of death, according to Beto O'Rourke. So liberty is a cult of death. You being able to make your own decisions, your own risk assessment. That is a cult of death, complete with human sacrifice and everything.
Yep. He nailed that. God, I mean, there's very few people. Those of you who know me well know that I try to be charitable. Like, I could say something nice about everybody. That I got in a big controversy last year because I actually said something nice about Caitlin Bennett. I can say something nice about anybody. I can find something nice to say about Satan. The joke always is, I could say, well, you know, at least he wears red really well. Not everyone can pull off red. I try to say something nice about everybody. I can't think of a damn nice thing to say about Beto O'Rourke. That dude is such the epitome of arrogant, self-entitled, just, oh, Lord have mercy. That dude just makes me want to retch. But let's continue on that note.
Joe Biden said that they were Neanderthals in Texas and Mississippi. Neanderthals. Now, to be fair, Joe Biden does remember the Neanderthals. The Neanderthals were some of his best friends. And he remembers riding a dinosaur. You know, he's a real blue-collar guy, Joe Biden. He would clock in for a day at the rock quarry, and then he would slide down the back of a brontosaurus and get into his car, and then he would use his actual feet, right? Move those feet so he could get home to Wilma. But here is Joe Biden talking about how everyone who disagrees with him is a Neanderthal. This is Captain Unity over here.
I think it's a big mistake. Look, I hope everybody's realized by now, these masks make a difference. And the last thing we need is the Neanderthal thinking that in the meantime, everything's fine, take off your mask, forget it. It still matters. It's critical that they follow the science.
Yeah.
Wash your hands, hot water, do it frequently. Wear a mask and stay socially distanced. And I know you all know that. I wish the heck some of our elected officials knew it.
What a piece of work. You know, why aren't people screaming about his name calling? I called out Trump for his name calling. I didn't like the way he necessarily talked about people who disagreed with him. But, you know, I guess it's okay when you're from the left or you're creepy Joe Biden. You know, Neanderthal. So normally I don't like making really cheap jokes like Ben Shapiro did, where he said Biden knew Neanderthals personally. When you're going to call people names like that, you deserve that comeback. You asked for it. I mean, how frickin' arrogant. They want to live their lives and not be beholden to the government and not look to the government as the savior. And that's Neanderthal thinking. Isn't that... I just can't even comprehend the arrogance. You know, it's nutty. Just called the whole state, well, because not everybody in Texas agrees, but basically the state of Texas. I wish it was Colorado. Neanderthals. I mean, yay, unity. We all need to come together, right, Joe? You're so full of it.
Speaking of this kind of idea of the magic, you know, of all of it, there's something to me, obviously this is, you know, I'm sure you were pleased to hear that yesterday the governor of Texas announced it's over. You know, and there's something so interesting about this, because it almost does feel like it's just this magic, which is what, you know, government is kind of in a way. It's just, you know, the idea of potions. I write this down and other people voted on it and boom, this isn't just words on a paper anymore. This is law, you know, and like these things that aren't just kind of made up. The only reality is whether they have the power to enforce that or not. But so you have Joe Biden. He's given a speech the other day and he's like, well, I'm hoping that a year from now we'll be back to normal, but I don't know. And it depends on X, Y, and Z. And then a governor in Texas just went, no, now.
Yeah, I love that point. That's so fantastic. Isn't it like magic? How, you know, these two entirely different realities. It's just crazy. But yeah, I love the way Dave, and I'm sorry for that really quick switch between two men who couldn't be any more different, Ben Shapiro and Dave Smith, but Dave has it exactly down. You know, what makes, you know, the almighty word of government, what makes the Texas guy wrong and Biden right? Neither of them actually are right ultimately. Only we can make those choices. And, you know, the Texas government's on the side of us making choices. So in that sense, you know, he is right. But even if Biden were right about the danger, which I do not believe, he would still be wrong because he's not letting people be people. He wants us, like so many on the left, to be perpetual children. You know? I mean, that was, I do not know how he did not get more crap for that statement where he had said, if you're black and you're not voting for me, you're not really black, or it was something very close to that. I mean, the mindset of these people, am I the only one who's just like gobsmacked at the arrogance? You know, I'm using MAC eyeshadow. I've got a whole palette of it here. And I am not, and MAC eyeshadow, or any of MAC Cosmetics, the ladies know, it's not cheap makeup, but look how patchy it's going on. I am not happy. Because this is not cheap eyeshadow. I could get better coverage. See how the patches right here? It's like ridiculous. Oh my God. Okay. Now we are going on to Jimmy Snow. Now, if you don't, I don't even remember what I have queued up for Jimmy Snow. I don't think it's about the virus. Oh, I remember now. See, look at that. Look. It's just coming off. It's not blending. Oh my God. Okay, so Jimmy Snow is a leftist. He fancies himself to be a political commentator and much smarter than he actually is. And has gotten pretty obnoxious lately, but he does a lot of cultural critiques. Like, he critiques Caitlin Bennett a lot, and, you know, Caitlin Bennett deserves all the critique she can get. But what drives me crazy is his critiques of her are so bad that I end up having to, like, argue against it, and it makes people think I'm arguing for Caitlin when I'm not. There's plenty of legitimate things to critique about her. But so he's not criticizing Caitlin here. He's criticizing this lady. I hope he says the name because I forget. It's this fitness, and I'm not familiar with her outside of the people who have been critiquing her. I'm not into, I like fitness, but I don't have time for it. And she's like super fundamentalist, which that's not my scene. So it's this Instagram influencer who was all into fitness, and I guess, you know, your typical Instagram girl, like showing off her body, very fit, very blonde. And apparently she had a born-again experience and has become a very evangelical Christian. So of course Jimmy has to say something about that because, you know, people can't just have their religion in their lives, you know, that he thinks that you know, having an idea that maybe isn't the mainstream and talking to other adults is somehow like actual violence with how upset he gets about it. I don't agree with this lady's ideas. I come from that world, and the type of world it is, for those of you who aren't familiar as far as like culturally is, it's the typical evangelical. The woman should be the helpmeet of the man. The man is in charge of the relationship. Women should be very modest. You know, the whole very American Pie, typical evangelical Christianity. That's not my game. I don't agree with her. But I also remember from when I was in that life, I chose it. Nobody was forcing me. I wasn't frickin' oppressed. And I proved I wasn't oppressed by once it wasn't serving me anymore and I changed my mind, I got the hell out. But I had the choice to go into that lifestyle if I wanted to. What business is it of anyone? What kind of relationship in the world I want to have with my husband? If it be, we could be some wild swingers, or we could be some conservative evangelicals where I'm fine letting the man be in charge of the house. Whose that business is that? So we're going to get into this because, Jimmy fancies himself Mr. Feminist, and it's just so funny. I'll point some of this out, but I just want you to know right off front and hey, Julian, the background here. And I wanted to get out right up front that I do not agree with this lady. But, I'm not going to have like a cow over it. Let's go on.
Hey, I am technically a part of the patriarchy, and I'm trying to stop perpetuating it, and I am trying to... It's really discouraging when you still see people go from having a level of independence to basically turning in their life and going, where I feel freest, being controlled over very arbitrary things. And it's just discouraging to see. So that's what we're going to talk about. And I'm going to show you.
Okay. Let me just stamp this here. When you have hooded eyes, man, doing the wings is very difficult. Now, did anyone catch how utterly incoherent what he just said was? Hey, he's a man, so, he's part of the patriarchy, whatever the hell that is, and he's doing his part to make sure we dismantle the patriarchy. But damn it, there's some women who just won't go along and let me free them. Do you see there? He's being offended because some women feel more comfortable in different roles than he thinks they should have. Isn't that then being more patriarchal, Jimmy? If you're thinking you've got to dictate to women what they're comfortable with and what they're free with? Oh, great male savior. It's like, do you even listen to yourself? And see what YouTubers see. When I'm just walking around life and people say stupid shit, I'm like, we all say stupid shit. But when YouTubers say stupid shit, I'm like, you had to edit that film. You heard yourself saying that and chose to put it out there anyway. Let me tell you, when I do edited videos and not these live ones, half of what I say ends up on the cutting room floor because I'm like, oh no, that, Live stream, okay, I'm sure I say a bunch of stupid stuff. But if it's an edited video and I'm still saying stupid stuff, that's a level of unawareness that escapes me. Let's continue.
Because clearly, she is a victim of what she is now perpetuating. So I hold her accountable for the perpetuation still. You have to. You have to hold people accountable for their actions. But they are clearly a result of her being the victim of this kind of thing.
Okay. You see the smugness again? Let me just finish this eye here. Or at least one part of it. Okay. So yeah, she couldn't have just made a decision, because it's unfathomable to Jimmy that someone with a brain that isn't being victimized can choose something differently. Could choose the, help-meet lifestyle. So she must be a victim. I'm like, screw you, guy. I used to be in the same position of this girl, and I was nobody's victim. What smugness? Why don't you just mind your own business, Mr. Man? You want to talk about mansplaining? Oh my God.
She writes, This is a recent one. Yes, I'm a Christian and I struggle, stumble, make mistakes, and am a mess, but I'm God's mess, and he is the same God who turns a mess into a masterpiece. And this is the thing that Christianity does. It makes you think of yourself in negative terms and that you can only be good if you add this on top. So in the case she's using mess, a lot of times they talk about purity and being impure, even Amazing Grace. I was a wretch, was blind, which is not actually something you should consider. It's pretty ableist to associate that with just being a negative thing. Not to say, look, I don't want to be blind, but treating it like a bad character flaw is pretty rough.
Okay, that thing just made me laugh. You notice how he went, and I'm keeping my eyes shut because I need to dry that wing, how he went all woke, and he's like, oh, I'm so offended by Amazing Grace. I was blind, but now I see, and they're making blindness seem like something bad. And then you could tell he stopped, and it's like, what? It's not like I would want to be blind. Why, Jimmy? Because being blind is less than ideal? How ableist of you, Jimmy. So he's finding ableism in Amazing Grace, and then tries to claim, oh, but it's depicting blindness as a moral characteristic. No, it isn't, Jimmy. No, it isn't. It isn't that deep. It's just saying you can't see, and now you can see. Not being able to see is not a moral thing. It's a handicap. It's not a moral thing. Because at least in Christian, here's the thing. In Christian theology, it isn't as if you, whatever fallen human nature you have doesn't go away when you have faith. It just helps you overcome it. It helps you see the path forward. It's not saying that it's making blindness equivalent to a moral failing. That is just like so ridiculous. Could you try harder to be offended? I mean, that was like, I think this is where I just started saying, okay, I'm done with all this woke stuff. When you're starting to say, because someone uses the very well-worn analogy of being blind to something and then seeing it and saying that is ableist, all I have to say, dude, is let me turn around and you can kiss my ass with that. Holy crap. It must be tiring to walk through life perpetually offended. Unreal. Now, Amazing Grace is ableist. What's the rest of that? It's been a long time. I'm sure there's some. Let's figure out something else we can get offended with Amazing Grace. And the funny thing is, because the guy who wrote the song was talking about how he changed from being a slave trader. You know, of course, though, we have to be offended. You know, it's somebody turning their life around. Amazing Grace, so sweet the sound that saved a wretch. Oh, he don't like calling other people a wretch. But, you know, it's people calling themselves that realize that they were in a bad place in life. And, most religions do tell you that you need God or something to be complete. That's just religion. You're offended at religion, fine. I found great strength in Christianity. Other people don't. I don't care. It's up to them. What's the rest of the lyrics? Blind, saved a wretch like me. I once was lost. I'm offended. He is, can we make some kind of class thing here? Lost, like runaways who are living on the street, homeless. Oh my God. Amazing Grace is against homeless and lost people. If you ever get lost anywhere, then you're just evil. You're evil. I'm offended. Okay, let's find something else to get offended about. Was lost, but now I'm found, was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fear relieved. How beautiful that grace appeared the hour I first believed. I can't find anything. I'm sure a woke person could find something to get offended by there. I can't find anything. I'm really trying. But okay. At least we found one other thing to get offended about in Amazing Grace. Okay. So, I love this of Julian. Feminist, while telling women what they can't do. Exactly. People ask me why I don't consider myself a feminist, because I obviously am a very assertive woman. I obviously believe in the equality of the sexes. And the reason I don't consider myself a feminist, because feminism, like nearly everything else today, doesn't mean what it's supposed to mean. It just does. If all it meant was believing in, like they try to claim, the dictionary definition of the full social and political equality of women, which includes the choice to lay aside some of that equality if you want to, just like men can do that if they want to. There's some kept men out there, and that's good for them. So, yeah, I believe in that, but I don't believe in all the other shit that comes along with it. And I think egalitarian is a perfectly serviceable word. Because I don't believe in male supremacy, but I also don't believe in female supremacy. And unfortunately, that is what a lot of feminism is turning into. It's all about putting men down rather than raising women up. You don't have to put other people down to raise yourself up. If you have to do that, there's something wrong with you. That means you're like really, really insecure. And most of the goals of feminism have been frickin' accomplished. I'm sorry. This is the problem with movements. And I said this in an interview the other day. I go, here's what I fear with some people and why I made the statement that I'm for the party because I'm for freedom. Unfortunately, there are some people, I'm just taking a look at the clock. What time is it? 6:04. There are some people who are for freedom because they're for the party. They got it backwards. And I had said, we should be planning on our own obsolescence. When we've accomplished freedom, there's no need for a group fighting for freedom. But here's the problem with movements. They don't go away. They accomplish their goals, and then they exist just to exist and perpetuate themselves. The goals of you're done. They're done. I'm sorry, they're done. Be offended at that. I don't care. They're done. And that whole movement should have gone away. We should just all be egalitarians, and when there are certain injustices, we address them. But we don't need a whole frickin' movement for them. And I've said this to people in my life, and you've even heard me complain against sexism sometimes. So there's sexism towards men too, by the way. But yeah, of course there's still sexism towards women, because people will be jerks. Hello, you're never going to solve that. You call it out. And most of the time, most sexism that's out there is inadvertent. That the person don't even realize that's how they're coming across. And when you point it out to them politely, and not coming at them with pitchforks, they go, oh, I didn't realize it. And they change. It's done. Okay, I'm sorry, I keep just going on and on. Let's see. I think that might have been the last clip. I don't know. Let's see.
Yeah, I don't think you should be making any comparisons to Jesus, because you clearly are very much on the conservative side. And if you actually read a lot of Jesus's philosophies, that dude was socialist AF. What a socialist.
Okay. Yeah, I remember that clip now. And Jimmy, one second here. Let me just finish that part of the eye. We were all suspecting here that Jimmy didn't know what the hell he was talking about. And with that last statement, he just proved it. I would love to frickin' debate that guy as to whether Jesus was socialist AF. Importing anyone's political views onto religious figures is just fucked up to begin with. Don't do it. I'd be just as bothered if someone goes, Jesus was capitalist AF. No, Jesus was a religious figure. He was not socialist. He also wasn't laissez-faire capitalist. And I say the same thing with people trying to, Jesus was a libertarian. Listen, if you're a Christian, you believe Jesus was God. Stop trying to put him into human categories for your own political ends. That's just gross. So no, Jesus was not socialist. Let me finish this wing here. Okay, let that dry. That is, in fact, the last clip. So let me just check comments here, and I'm getting ready for did I just smear that a little bit? For the show with Fight for Liberty. All righty. Okay, yeah, and I agree with you, Maria. I love men too, and I love men who are men. Like, I don't care. If you want to be a man and be very non-gender, non-conforming, that's fine. I don't have a problem with that either. But what's being demonized today is like your typical manly man. And I'm sorry, I love typically manly men. My husband is a manly man. You know, when shit needs being done, that's work. I do not hesitate. He fixes shit. He does mechanical shit. I love it. He's an outdoor man. Not saying every man needs to be that way, but that's the type of man who's being demonized. And I love those kind of men. But all right, I'm sorry, this hurt. Woo! If you're all cringing while I'm pulling that off, it's like pulling a Band-Aid off a wound. All right, everyone, I hope you have a good night. Maybe go try to find where Fight for Liberty is being broadcast. And I am doing a LP time capsule tonight. So I'll be sending out that scheduling notice. Love you all. I talked too much. Didn't get my makeup done. I gotta hurry. Okay. Bye-bye. And I hope you have an awesome night. I'm going to cycle through here, though, because I just forgot I have a couple other things. I'm going to blabber on. Okay. What should be up on the screen right now is my patrons. Look at that. I am like so encouraged that for a while there, I really wasn't getting support. And I have to tell you, I was just considering stopping. If you had any idea of how I have to squeeze these things in order to try to make a go of this, to do this liberty education, it's really, really hard. And I was getting discouraged. And then I started getting patrons. And oh my goodness, I can't even tell you how grateful I am. If any of you can afford it, if you can't, this isn't a guilt trip. Because listen, I'm not able to pay my mortgage right now. So believe me, no shame here, no shame in my game or your game. But if you can, even for as little as $1 a month, please become a patron. It really does encourage me. And look at who's on my list. I got Tom Woods and Stefan Kinsella. I couldn't be prouder. And for patrons only, we are on Patreon going through Fear and Loathing on the Campaign Trail 1972. It's a great addition to the LP time capsule we're doing because we're really learning a lot about the political situation in that day. Okay, now I'm going, everyone. Bye-bye. Love you.
You gotta take what you're given, that's how we live it. Don't be mad at the system, it's simply how we've existed. I hear a lot of people talking like they politicians and choose to be an accountant because it's safe.